Have you ever paused, just for a moment, and wondered why? Just when you're about to step into something beautiful, something meaningful, something that feels like destiny itself, the air around you shifts, a heaviness settles in, a strange resistance wraps itself around your plans. The timing feels off, people turn distant, unexpected problems arise out of nowhere. You feel watched, not by people, but by something unseen, something that doesn't wish for your success. What if I told you that this invisible tension might not be a coincidence, that there are entities monitoring, spirits assigned to keep a close, subtle, but potent watch on individuals just like you, those who carry within them the spark of something greater, a calling, a light, and that you, yes, you, may already be under their scrutiny. You see, these spirits don't know everything, not like the all-knowing creator who watches with love and sovereignty. No. These monitoring spirits are not omniscient. They're watchers, collectors of data, observers who study you, not because they care, but because they fear what you might become if left unhindered. They move silently, listening, recording, noting your routines, your fears, your hopes, and they report back to something darker, something invested in keeping you small, confused, distracted, ineffective. They are not passive. They are strategic, because your destiny poses a threat, not because of who you are now, but because of who you are becoming. So think back to the moments in your life when you felt closest to breaking through, when clarity, momentum, or inspiration pulsed through your spirit like electricity, only to suddenly vanish beneath a cloud of confusion, distraction, or sabotage. Perhaps you thought it was just bad timing, or bad luck, but maybe, just maybe, you were being watched and interrupted, not because you're weak, but because you're powerful. The world doesn't mark the insignificant, but if you felt the invisible pressure, the almost calculated resistance at your most important moments, then perhaps you've already been noticed. There's a reason for that. When a soul is marked with destiny, when their path is woven into the restoration of lives, families, or communities, they don't go unnoticed in the spiritual realm. There are forces who recognize the threat such a soul presents, and so they monitor, not with the purpose of admiring, but with the intent of delaying, derailing, and, if possible, destroying. You are not imagining it. The patterns, the setbacks, the betrayals that make no sense, the fatigue that shows up only when you are ready to act, the doubt that creeps in right as clarity begins to shine. These things are not always circumstantial. Sometimes they are constructed by those who have studied you long enough to know exactly how to slow you down. But here's the truth they hope you never realize. Their power lies not in what they know, but in what you don't. Your awareness is your weapon, and your faith is your fortress. Think of it like this. If you were not marked for something great, they wouldn't waste their time. Why send shadows to follow a soul that poses no threat to the darkness? Your resistance is evidence, not of failure but of importance. You are not just walking a path, you are carving one. And the very act of your rising disrupts what they try to hold in place. Your light irritates their shadows. Your progress exposes their lies. Your healing undermines their narrative of despair. And so, they watch, they whisper, they scheme. But once you recognize this pattern, you reclaim your authority. Once you awaken to this unseen war, you can choose not to fear it but to walk through it with wisdom. And in this age where everything is shared, posted, published, where we are encouraged to speak our dreams out loud before they are fully born, monitoring spirits are more active than ever. They no longer need to search as hard. They simply observe. You speak of your visions online. You share your heart in conversations. You post your next move. And without realizing it, You expose your next steps to forces that do not have your good in mind. Let me be clear. Transparency is not your enemy, but strategic silence is your ally. Guarding your vision is not secrecy. It is stewardship. You wouldn't plant sacred seeds in poisoned soil. So why plant your plans where monitoring spirits can harvest and twist them? Even Jesus, when healing certain individuals, told them, "See that you tell no one." Why? Because timing matters, exposure matters, and so does spiritual strategy. Every dream has its vulnerable stage before it grows roots, before it breaks through the soil. And in those tender beginnings, what it needs most is protection. That means being selective with who you share your next steps with. That means recognizing that not every listening ear is a safe one. Even well-meaning people can become unintentional, conduits leaking your light into spaces where shadows lurk. Now, you might ask, why me? Why would I be targeted? And the answer is simple, though weighty. Because your victory is not just yours. Because when you rise, others rise too. When you heal, others learn it's possible. When you speak, chains break, sometimes ones you'll never see. The impact of your purpose is not linear. It ripples. And those ripples interfere with the agendas of those who traffic in bondage, confusion, chaos. That is why monitoring spirits do not wait for your success to act. They move early. They move when you're still deciding. They move when you're still doubting. They move when you're most vulnerable. But here's what they don't expect. For you to awaken. For you to fortify your mind. For you to guard your spiritual gate. And for you to speak only when your spirit says the time is right. Let me take you back for a moment to one of the most profound spiritual confrontations in history. Jesus, newly baptized, declared as the beloved Son, full of divine identity, was led into the wilderness. And there, the enemy came. Not before, after, not in weakness, but in divine revelation. Why? Because when identity is revealed, destiny follows. And when destiny follows, opposition begins. Satan didn't tempt Jesus because he doubted who he was. He tempted Jesus because he knew who he was and wanted to break him before his mission could begin. And the tactics? They weren't random. They were personal, precise, targeted, just like the tactics used against you. Not to destroy your body, but to disorient your spirit, to make you question, doubt, retreat. But Jesus stood firm not through force, but through clarity. He knew who he was, and he knew who the enemy was, and that was enough. So too must you stand. When trials arise unexpectedly, when confusion clouds your confidence, when distractions appear right before breakthroughs, recognize the pattern. And instead of crumbling, anchor deeper. Because this is not a sign of failure. It is a sign that you are on the verge of something the enemy fears. And when that resistance comes, speak to it. Declare, I see you, but you do not define me. Declare, my path is protected. My purpose is preserved. Declare, you may watch, but you will not win. This is how you reclaim your space, not with paranoia, but with presence, not with fear, but with fierce awareness. And in the quiet moments, when the battle is internal, when your mind becomes the battlefield, when doubt creeps in like smoke, filling your lungs, choking your courage, pause, return to your center, reflect, pray, breathe. The storm outside will always try to reflect itself within, but your peace is your weapon. Your stillness is your strategy. Your inner alignment becomes the fortress they cannot penetrate. So as you walk your path, guard your plans. Speak wisely. Share selectively. Not because you are afraid, but because you are strategic. Fortify your mind. Anchor your faith. Protect your spirit. And know this: your journey is sacred, not just to you, but to the world you're meant to touch. And the more significant your calling, the more deliberate your walk must become. So walk it, eyes open, spirit sharp, because the battle is not to stop you, but to stop what happens when you succeed. And that, my friend, is exactly why you must.